Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundaram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case.
We will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is Rich Weinstein. Welcome to Scribble Talk. So great to have you with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So Rich is the Senior Director of Proposals and Writing. He ensures ITegrity proposals have the highest chances of winning business for the company. As a college intern more than 30 years ago, Rich was a writer for NOAA. His first permanent job was a proposal manager for an environmental science government contractor, immediately winning them their largest contract ever. Having a lifetime percentage win rate, PWIN, of more than 66%, Rich won task orders as small as $20,000, single award contracts from $1 million to $1 billion, and government-wide acquisition contracts, or GWACs, of $25 billion and more. Wins ranged across government agencies, both military and civilian. He has technical experience working with IT networking, telecommunications, and big data systems development lifecycle, or SDLC teams at Hughes Network Systems, Stratus Computer, Verizon, and Cisco. Prior to joining ITegrity as in a permanent position, Rich has a bachelor's in zoology and general science from the University of Maryland. How cool. He taught freshman composition and grammar while working toward a master's in English, also at Maryland. Rich studied writing under the University of Maryland writer-in-residence J.R. Salamanca as he worked for a master's in creative writing. Oh my goodness. He participated in the Vicious Circle, a brutal writer's workshop, for many years. At the age of just 22, he had his short novel published by Ballantine Books, a subsidiary of Random House. Wow. So Rich, we love to start at the beginning. We had such a great introduction there, but we're curious, where were you born? Where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
Okay, so I was born Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami Beach, although my parents were living in Miami. There's like two separate cities right next to each other. I lived there for about a year. Then my dad got himself a job as editor-in-chief of a movie magazine in New York City. So he moved to New York. The owner of the movie magazine died after about 5 years. So when I was about 6, we moved to Albany. I lived in Albany from 6 to about 12, and then moved to the Washington area. And I've been living in suburbs of the Washington, D.C. area ever since.
Oh, wow. And so is that what kind of got you to go to University of Maryland? Because it was just kind of a local school?
That's University of Maryland, and that's also government contracting. Hey, if you're in the Washington area, that's one of the major businesses to be in, and Maryland is the biggest school you can go to as local, reasonably inexpensive back in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we dig into, how you got into proposals, we're curious to hear about your short novel.
Yeah, so I've always been, ever since about the age of 7, I was writing stories and things like that. And my dad, as editor of a magazine, was always dreamt of being a writer. So I used to watch him when I was a little kid, typing on an ancient typewriter with 2 fingers. And after watching him for about 2 or 3 minutes typing, he'd grab the page out of the typewriter, scroll it up into a ball, and throw it onto the floor as hard as he could. And he was once offered a contract with Philadelphia Phillies as a baseball pitcher. He threw his paper scrunched harder than he ever threw a baseball. So from all that, I think I got inspired to be a writer. So I've always wanted to be a writer of fiction. So here, going for first did a Bachelor of Science, then Master of English. I sort of combined the two, became a science writer and science proposal manager for the government. But I always wanted to. So my novella, which I was 21 years old when I sold it. I'm listed in the Science Fiction Encyclopedia as the first piece of fiction writing about recombinant DNA, sort of like doing DNA, changing life by manipulating DNA. That's what my story is about. So I've been dreaming of writing ever since. I've written a few novels. Never did anything other than I've never got anything published, but other than a lot of nonfiction here and there, stories, articles, things like that. But mostly it's doing proposals, writing for government contractors, writing for Cisco, writing for Verizon, writing for industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is so cool. Love that you've been published, and sounds like a pretty cool topic. I'm going to have to look up this novella and check it out. Also, I'm curious, I do find, all the proposal writing fascinating, and we will dig into that. But tell us a little bit about Vicious Circle. It kind of reminds me of like a really bloody red team or something.
So this was a writer's workshop. And the guy who at the house the writer's workshop was, the leader of the writer's workshop, was editor-in-chief of 2 science fiction magazines, Amazing and Fantastic. His name was Ted White, or is Ted White. He still does it, actually. And he was, and the entire workshop was brutal. So that if you had a story that you were having read by the writer's workshop, the standard joke was that you didn't need to open the door to leave. You could crawl under the floor because all your bones were broken.
No, jeez.
Yeah. So it was really a great writer's workshop. It taught writing better, I think, than studying under J.R. Salamanca, who was he wrote 2 novels that became Warren Beatty's first starring role and an Elvis Presley movie.
Oh gosh.
So Salamanca was a great writer and a great professor of writing. But Ted White's writer's workshop was more brutal and I think taught writing better than that. So my comment on my Facebook page is in trying to convince the government that the company, and whatever company I've been working for over the years, I've been with a lot of them, whatever company I'm working for is better than all the other companies out there, is like same thing as writing fiction. It's writing fiction and writing proposals. Essentially, it's redundant. Same thing.
Fascinating. All right, so I'm sure we're going to dig into a little bit of those parallels, or like in a few of the questions. But before we dig into that, tell us a little bit about your first job outside of teaching composition and grammar as getting your master's degree.
So as a government intern, I was working for NOAA, National Oceanic
Uh-huh.
and Atmospheric Administration. So I've always been interested in like the environment, biological sciences, saving the world today. But I went from there to a small company called Geomet Technologies, Inc.
Mm.
And the very first, the title was proposal manager. This was my very first real job outside of being a government intern.
Wow.
And the first proposal I worked on was doing, and this dates me because I'm ancient, I am old. This was sampling services for Love Canal, New York, with Love Canal being a sort of I think they had some chemical factory, so it was a chemical waste dump site near Buffalo, New York. And what this was doing sampling services to clean up that chemical site because it was near elementary schools and things like that. So we won that proposal, and it was so big that 40% of the company disappeared to upstate New York. I'm in the Washington area. It had 40% of the company goes up to New York for the next year to work on upstate New York, to work on this contract. So I ended up leaving, going to another small government contractor. But that's where I say it was the biggest proposal they ever had for this tiny company.
Yeah.
So then I've been with several different government contractors before going to Verizon. Actually, I went to what is now Hughes Network Systems. In those days, it was Macom DCC. And the biggest proposal I ever worked on, and this was in the mid 1980s, was in those days $550 million, doing sort of a precursor to the internet for a government organization that was so top secret that they never told me what the name of the organization was.
Wow.
I pretty much know what it is because I had to go to a meeting on site and I know which Air Force base it was at. But $550 million in 1985 is well over $1 billion. Actually, it's about $2.5 billion today. And this took me months and months and months to do. And we won it. And it was, they say that was a multi-billion-dollar contract. It was probably it'd be over $2 million today, $2 billion today, excuse me, a single award contract.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. And, I can't imagine how different doing proposals in the 80s was compared to doing a proposal today. Probably a lot more hard copies, different types of.
So the one that I even have a copy of, I'm looking at it at the moment, of the Geomet contract that, it was typed on an impact printer. It was electronic, but it was a wheel that impacted into a ribbon, which impacted then into the paper, which makes it very hard to scan today, which is interesting. But that was how things were done in those days. It was not the way printing is done today on laser printers. So yeah, this was old. And back in those days, I used instead of you might remember FedBizOps before SAM. Before FedBizOps, there was Commerce Business Daily, CBD, which was a newspaper that came out every day. And it had the same information that you currently have in SAM and had in FBO. That's what we're using back in those days. So I've been doing this a long time.
Wow. Yeah, you're the first person to ever mention the precursor to FedBizOps, before the internet was able to distribute that information.
It's funny because I'm working on a proposal right now. In fact, I had to postpone a meeting for that, for this interview, or this podcast, because I'm working with a partner, and the woman who's in charge of this contract, I was talking to her about our proposal history, and she actually has you. She sounds awfully young. She sounds like she's in her 20s. She knew Commerce Business Daily. She said she's approaching 60. So wonderful Southern accent. Well, it's a pleasure to listen to this woman. But it's just one of the first people I met in quite some time that actually was familiar with Commerce Business Daily.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yep. Definitely before my time, but I'm sure there's still lots of people out there who, have fond memories of that publication.
Yeah. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit is I spent years and years writing proposals. My entire professional career was mostly writing proposals, but having a dream of being a novelist. So one of the novels that I wrote that failed, that did not get published, I told myself, I'm never going to fail again. So I mentioned that I was with NOAA, I was into climate, I was into environment from the very start, and growing up in Miami, and then in Albany, New York, in Miami, which today has sunny day floods. When you have king tides, the water doesn't just rise in the tide, it rides in the streets. So I've always been concerned with climate change. Albany, I used to build snow forts in September that would last until March. Today, the snow melts in 3 days. So what I decided to do after writing a novel didn't get anywhere, and I'm still working as a proposal manager, I told myself, I'm never going to fail again. I'm going to write on a subject that people care about, climate change. I'm going to write the best novel I've ever written in my life. And I'm going to sort of emulate Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, which, according to Abraham Lincoln's comment was, so you're the lady that started this great war. She pretty much is known for ending slavery in the United States because her book persuaded the North to fight. So what I sort of told myself was, I'm going to write a book that will inspire the world to truly fight climate change. So that's what I've been doing in my spare time. And so what my comment about being a government contracting employee for years and years is that you can have a dream and you can work in a similar field on your own after hours. And I think I know I'm going to succeed. Right now I'm just about at the point of sending this. All that's left is changing my webpage to show some new links and get agents, assemble agents to send my novel to. So here, I've been doing this. My GeoMet thing was in 1982, 40 years ago. So after 40 years of writing in my spare time, I'm sort of hoping to retire selling a novel that I suspect will make me enough money that the retirement will be pretty comfortable. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to inspire other government or other people who are writing proposals, other people who are, because in writing proposals, one of the things when I interview other proposal people, I always see that they're interested in writing. That's why they became proposal people, that they like to write, proposal writers. And they all have a dream. They all have a dream of either they write poetry or they write fiction. So what I'm essentially saying is that keep up that dream. Keep working for the government. Keep our government contracting. Keep making a living at it. It's not a bad way to do things, and being creative is you're persuading the government that your contracting company is better than every other contracting company when they're pretty much all the same. So keep doing it, but keep that dream. And that's my message for the day, is having that dream and working at it. One of these days you're going to succeed.
Wow, is super inspiring. You know, I myself love creative writing and just kind of gave it up after, you know, getting into government proposals. But perhaps I'll start, you know, journaling and writing again in pursuit of, you know, maybe one day being published.
So I sort of put it aside while my son was a little boy. When he was sitting on my lap playing Mickey Mouse games on my computer. I stopped writing while we were raising our son. I was an only child, thanks to medical issues, but whatever. But once he got to the point of being off in like high school and having friends and being on his own, I went back to my writing. So the one thing I want to say is the novel I'm working on is a climate change novel. It's called Morning Dove, and it's I'm writing it under the name. My full name is Richard Sean Weinstein. My middle name is Sean. So it's written under the name Sean Weinstein, but I spell Weinstein funny just because there are zillions of Sean Weinstein spelled Weinstein as my name is really spelled. So if you want to look me up and look at what I'm writing and the novel that I'm about to sell, it's Sean Oueinsteen, and the novel is called Morning Dove, Mourning And I need to tell a story about my morning dove. So here, living in Silver Spring, Maryland, suburb of Washington, D.C., one day I drive up into my carport, and my wife has earthenware pots that are all over the place. But one of the places she had it on was a shelf in the carport that like faces into our living room, and it's a brick shelf. And one of her earthenware pots fell into the carport onto the ground and broke. So I thought, she's going to blame me. I've got to put this up, fix this, and try to put it back together and put it back on the shelf. And then the following day, I see a bird building a nest in the fragments of that earthenware pot that I tried to put together. And I watch it for the next couple of days building a nest, and then it has eggs. And I look it up, and it's a morning dove. And then I find out that there's actually two morning doves, the male and the female, that they end up having a couple of eggs, and one of them is always there, and the other one. So it's just amazing to watch. And they had two chicks, and everything was wonderful. And the chicks grew up and flew off, and they all flew off together. And we left the nest where it was because we didn't want to take it apart because it's just so cool to have that nest in our carport. Following year, they're back. The same two doves. They again have a couple of eggs. They're sitting on the eggs. And then one day I happen to be looking out a window on the other side of my house and see my neighbor's very, very ancient, big old fat cat jump out of his hiding underneath a bush and grab something and then carry it by the neck back into his lair underneath his bush. And I'm thinking, boy, I hope that's not one of my morning doves. And sure enough, the male morning dove for the next 18 hours was crying, mourning. And what doves do is they or at least the male, what the song of the morning dove is coo, curry, coo, coo, coo. He did that as loud as he possibly could for 18 hours straight, never stopping. And then he flew off. The eggs that were still in the nest ended up crumbling over the next year. A year later, he was back. This time he spent 4 hours standing in the exact same place, shouting as loud as he could, coo, curry, coo, 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 nonstop for 4 hours. And then he flew off, and we never saw him again. But that inspired my novel. So that's why I've got a novel called Morning Dove.
Oh my goodness, that is so fascinating. And I'm curious now if there's going to be any allusions to that at all in the novel.
Oh, of course, yes.
Very cool, very cool. And so that's a good transition over to kind of our, surprise rapid fire questions round, where we cover some hobbies and interests first. Bhaskar, I bet we'll dig into kind of, some zoology perhaps, and some of the importance of climate change and some other topics you've hit on, and then, move over into our fond nutters round, which is super fun.
Okay.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for that. Rich, I think what a fascinating story. I think we all have had writers in the past, journalists, writers, but not a serious novelist. So good to have you, Rich. Rich, this book that you have written, climate change, why is it a serious issue, Rich?
Why is climate change a serious issue? Well, what my novel is really about is post-apocalyptic, because what is really going to happen, there's no way possible to avoid 1 foot of sea level rise within the next 30 years, because the ocean's just too big and it's too hot, and there's nothing you can do about it. If we were to fix climate change immediately, it would still get 1 foot of sea level rise. That will cause people to move from the coasts to inner country cities that don't have quite the same problems, but those cities can handle their own people. They can handle food and water and electricity and all that for themselves. They won't be able to handle the millions and millions and millions of refugees coming from the coasts all across the world. There's going to be many hundreds of millions, maybe billions. That will cause civilization to collapse. So in my novel, I have civilization collapsing. What I'm trying to do is to prevent civilization from collapsing. I'm trying to persuade the world to start working on fixing the climate. And it's like, we're not doing it. We need to. It's really crucial. And it's I don't know, it's not quite happening. I'm trying to make it happen. That's why I'm doing what I can with writing a climate novel.
Totally. I think from our little part, we'll share this message to as many listeners as possible. I know you've already been to a few podcasts. You have appeared in a Netflix documentary. You have a 10,000 hit blog and a web page with 100,000 hits, etc. From our side, Rich, we will do all our can to just take this message forward. It's so nice when somebody stands for something which they believe in and try to share that message to the outside world. Good to be part of this little journey with you on this. Thank you, Rich. Rich, addition to writing novels, what other hobbies and interests do you have?
That's the big one at the moment, because that's somewhat all-encompassing. As I mentioned, I was into science fiction. I still am, but now it's more of climate fiction. I have I'm an Orthodox Jew, so I'm involved in synagogue type things. But in terms of hobbies, I have a wife who comes from what was the USSR, is now Ukraine. So I'm interested in that. So there's a lot of different things in my life, but I can't really say I have hobbies other than writing a novel. That's the biggie.
Totally. I think you're passionate about the subject. That too, it's the novel is not just a standard novel, it's a message, key message. And I can imagine, as we say in the place that I've born, if you have a big dream, the dream should not make you sleep. You have a big passion here.
Right.
Continue. Great. So let's officially enter what we call Nutters Round in honor of Howard Nutt, or the rapid random fire question round. There is no right or wrong answer, short and fast. Whatever comes in your mind, let's just go with that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Perfect. So let's start then. What's the greatest risk that you have ever taken in your life so far?
The greatest risk? Marrying someone from the USSR.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, this is not my life. This is something totally different, something totally new. That was a risk. It was a challenge, and it's probably the greatest thing I've ever done.
Totally. I think you just mentioned you have an Orthodox Jew upbringing, and I'm sure part culturally that would have been a challenge. Plus USSR and the US.
Actually, my upbringing was not Orthodox. My upbringing was actually Reformed. It's my wife who said about even before we were married that she wants to raise our children Orthodox. So in order to raise the children Orthodox, we have to become Orthodox.
Wow.
So that was a major change in my life.
Oh wow, 100%, totally. What an impact. So, what are some of the guilty pleasures that you are willing to admit?
Guilty pleasures I'm willing to admit. My wife and I watch movies on downstream every Saturday night after our Sabbath ends. That's the one guilty pleasure that we both participate in, really.
That's beautiful. Saturday night, evening, movie night, the movie evening. Right. That's beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. So what's the first book you remember loving? Oh my God, this book is amazing when you were young. Anything comes to your mind?
Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. Wow. Somehow I think my sister might have given that to me when I was very little. But my mother was the one who got me into science fiction. But Stranger in a Strange Land, maybe she got me that one actually. It's just a great book.
Totally. So what's the funniest movie or a play that you have watched or you have seen?
Shoot, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was a Western starring Jane Fonda back in the 1960s. My father was away. My sister was away. And I just have one sister. So my mother and I went to a movie together. And I can't think of the name of it, but it was my mother and I were just laughing like mad. Jane Fonda Western from the early 60s.
Oh, it sounds like a good memory. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So if you could be any male or female sports star, who would you be?
Sandy Koufax.
Oh, why?
Well, my dad was a pitcher, so I dreamt of being a pitcher. Sandy Koufax was by far the greatest pitcher I've ever seen in my entire life. He just magnificent. And then so that's sort of my dream was to be another Sandy Koufax at one point in my life. That's what I wanted to do.
Did you play any sports while you were young?
Yeah, I was Little League. I was a pitcher in Little League. One of the things I talk about in one of my biographies is that that with my dad having a contract to with the Philadelphia Phillies that he couldn't take because World War II started just about that time, and that interfered. I wanted to be a pitcher, and he was my coach. But in the biggest game of my career, this was to get into the playoffs as a little leaguer, to get beyond my own little league organization. We were playing against my best friend's team, and he hit 2 home runs off of me, and that ended my baseball dreams because we just weren't good enough. We got clobbered, and that's just sort of killed it for me. Was having my best friend hit 2 home runs off of me to ruin my dreams of baseball.
Why is your friend still your best friend?
No, he's still in Albany, New York, and I'm still here. We occasionally communicate, but not very often.
Nice. That's good. Nice. So, if you had a choice, which animal would you be and why?
Octopus. In fact, the novella that I published when I was 21 years old was about the octopus, because they are the smartest they might actually be even smarter than dolphins. And where intelligence comes from is being able to manipulate things with appendages and look at them with your eyes in front of your face. So that's having hands makes humans smart. Having a trunk makes elephants smart. Having arms that with suckers on them that octopuses can, and it's actually octopus is plural of octopus according to its Latin fifth declension. But having the octopus be able to look at things in front of its face, the octopus brain is far and away the biggest brain of any non-vertebrate. They're just smart. They're just for I've seen videos of the giant octopus and the shark, where the shark dies because the octopus is smarter. The octopus is hiding and can grab a shark out of the water and put its tentacles around the octopus mouth, around the shark's mouth, and kill and eat the shark. So the number one predator in the ocean is not the shark, it's the octopus. So I like octopuses.
Wow, that's a simple question, but what a magnificent insight. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure listeners will be like, wow, that's amazing. So if you could have a dinner with 3 people from history, who would you invite? And if you like cooking, what would you cook for them?
Well, I'm not a cook, but the number one person I'd invite is Moses. And Moses is because my big question is, did you really see God? If so, what was he like? Can you prove that you actually saw him? Did this really happen? I mean, that's Moses is the one person that actually saw God. So he'd be number one on my list. What I would actually, I'm pretty good at making steak. So that's what I would do. I'd make like a T-bone steak in the oven. I'm pretty good at that. I think Moses would eat meat. I mean, one of the things in Passover is all about eating the lamb. So I'm trying to think. You're saying 3 people. Leonardo da Vinci would obviously be number 2 for me, just because he was just so brilliant. And Einstein would be number 3. I like brilliance. I like intelligence. I like following brilliant people.
Wow. 3 different people. That's nice. I know you briefly mentioned that you wrote a book. Did you write an autobiography as well, Rich? Or
no? But in trying to sell a novel, right, there are you've got to get yourself an agent and a publisher. And both the agent and the publisher want you to put together what they call the pitch. The pitch includes a log line, which is like a one-liner saying what the novel's about. It includes a elevator speech, which is like about 2 paragraphs. It includes a short synopsis, a short biography, and a long biography, and a long synopsis. So in my pitch for my current novel, I wrote a long, biography that's probably about 3 pages. And in there, that's where I'm talking about being inspired by watching my father tear pages out of a typewriter and throw them on the floor. And so, and actually in that biography, I discuss how what I'm trying to do is not even save the planet from people migrating to inner cities, not inner cities, but to cities that don't have climate problems. I'm trying to prevent. Well, what I do is one of my very first memories. I'm in a car with my mother and my sister. My mother's driving, and my mother has tears coming down her face. And my sister asks why. My sister's about 3.5 years older than I am. She's asking why, and my mother says that her favorite aunt just passed away. And my sister says, "Is it that aunt?" And my mother says, "Yes." And my mother says, "She wasn't the same since it happened." And here I'm in the back seat. I'm about 3 years old. I don't understand a thing. I'm saying, "What are you talking about? Why are you trying to keep words from me? Why are you?" So my sister, who is not reserved about saying, my mother wouldn't have said anything. My sister says, explains to me first what a bayonet was. Bayonet being a rifle that has a knife on the end of it. So, and then she says that this aunt was holding her baby in her arms, and an evil soldier stabbed the baby and killed it in the mother's arms. This was our little cousin. So I started like screaming, what's this all about? How can this possibly be? I'm 3 years old. And my mother has to explain to me Auschwitz, that this was her aunt who survived Auschwitz, but had her own baby killed in her arms. So really, I'm writing a novel to not just prevent the fall of civilization, but the fall of civilization where you have people who have water, jobs, electricity, food, and people who don't, fighting each other, and all of them are armed. I'm trying to prevent babies from being stabbed in their mother's arms. That's really what I'm writing about. So that when I talk about my biography, my long biography, that's what my biography is really about.
Beautiful explanation, Rich. I think at some point after the novel goes out, you do need to write your autobiography, because within your biography are characters like your mother, like your sister, and everybody you might have touched who might have inspired you to or reinforce the message of why climate change is important. And we would love to hear about those little people or the big people in your life, who might have influenced you to write whatever it is. But just in case, if you do write a book about yourself, Rich, what would you name your autobiography?
Naming my autobiography. Probably Humbled.
Humbled, nice work.
Because every time you hear somebody who gets an award, they say, "I'm humbled by this award." It's not true. The award makes them proud. It's like they want to shout to the world, "Hey, I won this thing." It's the opposite of being humbled. So to be a novelist, to be somebody who writes, you have to think that what you have to say is so great that the world needs to hear it. So in writing an autobiography, you're saying that your life is so great that the world needs to hear it. So the the idea of humble being not humbled, it's sort of the opposite. It's a contradiction, and it's a humorous contradiction. I think would be a good title for a novel, a good title for an autobiography.
100%, Richard, 100%. Rich, what's the biggest lie, in your opinion, that you have been told?
The biggest lie I've been told. Okay. I had a job in which I told people immediately in my job interview that I do not work on Saturdays, that from Sunday and Friday night to Sunday and Saturday night, I no matter what happens, I don't answer the phone, I don't drive cars, I don't turn lights on and off. So as a proposal manager, that you can't hire me without knowing that, because some people feel that proposals are 24/7. I'm 24/6. So so I had a owner of a company tell me, not a problem at all. No, and he and his wife were interviewing me, and the wife was saying how that's of course they understand, not the least bit of a problem. And then my third week on the job, I'm working on a proposal, and I turn in a draft of the proposal to due Monday at 5 p.m. And I give the owner of the company a draft that only requires his signature over the weekend. He should read it and sign it. And he fired me right then and there. That he said, no, he'll be working over the weekend on this, and I won't be. So I took him to court, and the court said, it's your word against his. So they didn't do anything for me, but I was fired for refusing to work on my Sabbath. And he lied to me that it wouldn't make the least bit of difference, that he understood, not a problem. And it was a problem. So that was the biggest lie that I ever got, was being fired after 3 weeks on a job for refusing to work on my Sabbath, after being told that was not a problem in the least.
Wow, what a powerful message. And you stood again for something that you believed in. Again, there will always be people, end of the day, they dump everything at the last minute. and then you end up carrying it forward. But once or twice, it's okay. But after that, if you have been dumped on that, then you do need to stand up to it. What a message. Thank you, Rich. Rich, if you could visit any place in the world right now, where would you choose to go and why?
Good question, because I'm sort of debating with myself whether it would be someplace like Beijing, just because it's interesting, whether it would be Kiev, because it's right now in the middle of a war, or I mean, I sort of loved being in Italy just because it's ancient history that I'm fascinated with. So those are like my three favorite places, or three most. But it's a tough decision right now, considering that what's happening in Ukraine. I might want to go to Ukraine just to experience it, and I don't know, just show my own bravery for it. I think.
Nice. I'm sure things will settle down and we all can travel around to be with your loved ones. But that's nice. I wish you are going to go to Ukraine and China and other places that you just mentioned now, Rich, in the coming weeks, months, not all years. That's good. Rich, we are now in our gratitude round. Thanks for sharing in the Nutters round. So who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
Okay. Probably have to start with Isaac Asimov, who, as a great science fiction writer, sort of inspired me, and I met him personally, and I was on a panel with him, and he was helpful. But even more than that is science fiction writer Fred Pohl, who I sent a novel to, the novel that I got published. And then I met him a year later at a science fiction convention and said, hey, have you seen my novel? And he said, yes, it was the best thing he rejected in well over a year. He just rejected it. But he said, then he took me to another science fiction writer who was into teaching writing. So I had like emails I exchanged with him, but I spent a lot of time talking to Fred Pohl. Fred Pohl eventually took the novel that I rewrote, gave it to what he called the best young agent in business, Kirby McCauley. He told Kirby McCauley to give it to Judy Lynn Del Rey of Ballantine Books. He told, because he got her a job, he got Kirby McCauley into the business in the first place. So he got Kirby to be my agent. He got Judy Lynn Del Rey to accept my novella, and told Judy Lynn to publish it. She published it. So he was probably the greatest influence in my life. Fred Pohl, the great science fiction writer.
Sure. And how about your family then, Rich?
Excuse me, what my family's inspiration? My dad. With him being dreams of being a writer, being very much romantic. I'm sort of see myself following in his footsteps, or the footsteps he dreamed of reaching that he never managed to succeed at.
Totally. I think you have all the love and support with the team and also people around you, Rich. Wish you all the blessings to continue and a lot more people come to your life. Rich, what's the personal trait you like the most about yourself?
Personal trait? Being romantic.
So what's the one common myth about our profession that you want to debunk?
A comment about my profession of being a proposal manager, proposal director, proposal writer, that I want to debunk is that one is it should not be all encompassing, that proposals, people tend to work crazy hours. Keep your dream. Don't let it take all of your time. It should not, I mean, you're working for somebody else, you're trying to make somebody else wealthy, not yourself. So what I hope to debunk is that proposals are the end all be all of everything, that hey, winning a proposal is everything. Yeah, it is, but and that's what makes it fun, but don't let it take over your life.
Wow, what a powerful advice on top of debunking the common myths as well, Rich. Rich, we talked about your early life career, how you entered into being a novelist, and your message that you want to talk about climate change, few random questions here and there, people in your life, and the common myth that you just debunked just now. Immediately, what are you looking forward to future? And is there anything else you would like to share to the listeners before we close the podcast, Rich?
Well, I just keep saying this is that, of course, the most important thing from my perspective is vote for climate. I mean, it's going to change the world, going to destroy the world unless everybody that like hears my voice, everybody around works at voting for people that are going to be trying to fix the climate, doing things like buying products that will fix the climate, such as electric cars, as opposed to gasoline powered cars. Do it. And that's really my biggest message: is climate's important. Care about it and do something about it. And mostly that's voting and buying.
What a powerful message again. One for the profession and one for what you believe in. Totally focus on who you elect and also focus on what's in your control, which is what you buy. Nice, Richard. Richard, thank you so much for joining Scribble Talk, and it's been an absolute privilege to have you with us. And wish you, your family, your loved ones all the good luck, and also wish you all the very best with your book coming up, The Morning Dow, and everything else that you're going to go from there. Rich, thank you again. Stay healthy, stay happy, and continue to inspire us. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundaram,
signing off.